that you're very impact driven, that you want to help a lot of people. Would you mind telling me more about that? What is your mission?
Making money's cool. It's cool for like 5 minutes. And then after that, it's just pretty empty. If you're going to go build something and it's only tied to money, I think you're going to be really disappointed at the end of it. I like to focus on things that are great value adds to people. And it just so happens that when you create a lot of value for people and great impact, then money usually follows that. And it just is a little bit more fun. You have to embrace pain and failure and rejection like no one else.
The most valuable thing that I see that I can get out of entrepreneurship is just the development that you get personally, right? In order to achieve success, you have to become someone successful. Like, you have to change as an individual. You have to really become better. And I feel like that. Hello and welcome, everyone. This is the Founder Scoop. My name is Jacob Lee, and today I have with me Thomas Wilkinson.
Great to be here.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
So what is your business here at iHub? What do you do?
So we have a small venture capital fund called All In Ventures, and we invest in early stage companies at the very beginning.
That's
super
cool.
Do. Yeah.
I've been really wanting to hear about your business because, like, that's very different from what most businesses do here.
Yeah. It's something that has been a passion of mine for a really long time. And while I worked in sales at a company called Vivint for a long time, my real passion was investing in little startups and like giving people the kind of the fuel they needed to get going on their hero's journey, if you will. And in 2023, so a year ago, the market's shifted dramatically, and so just prices for companies went back down to reality, and it was a great time to start investing again.
So what got you into investing? What started your entrepreneurial journey?
This is Corbin Church's fault, mostly, but my plan was always to go to business school. Like, I think a lot of people watching this will probably relate to that. You're told as a kid that that's the path, and I had a cousin that went to BYU and studied electrical engineering, and then he went on to Harvard Business School and then got the awesome job and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, well, that's what you're supposed to go do. But I always thought eventually I'd start my own business. I just didn't know how soon that would be. I took some entrepreneurship classes and eventually, had a mentor that told me that I could start right away. I didn't have to wait until I was 40 to start a business. And so that's how things kind of got started.
So were you a student at BYU then?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's
so
cool. When did you get into BYU?
What year?
Yeah.
Well, this is going to date back a little bit. I graduated in 2017.
Okay.
2016. It took me forever to finish my degree because I was starting businesses while in school. And my first business that I started was an ed tech business called Sign Glasses. It was, just going to the tech transfer at BYU and looking at all the different patents and everything. And found one, and it's like, people will probably people will probably use this. And then, eventually we had done some validation. I don't know if you guys talk about this on the podcast.
Would you mind explaining how that process works at BYU?
Yeah.
Like the patent system?
So at BYU, there's professors all over just doing research. And it's usually research on things that they're passionate about, and they can go and get grants from the government to study a certain subject matter. And a lot of times they'll come up with, a new breakthrough idea or some, scientific breakthrough, and then nothing happens with it because they have tenure at the university.
They're too busy,
yeah, they have tenure at the university, and they're not going to take the risk to go and build the business. And so they send it to the tech transfer office, and the tech transfer office works with entrepreneurs like you and I, And if there's an idea you like, you can either buy or license the technology from the university, and then the professor gets compensated and everything like that. So
So what were you studying when you started like your
yeah.
first business?
Oh, so I did engineering.
Engineering.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I've done zero engineering in my professional career. So,
And did you graduate as like with an
nah,
degree?
yeah,
Wow.
mechanical engineering. I should have dropped out. It was a promise I made to my mother-in-law that I'd stick to it. And, I kept the promise, but it was painful.
Yeah. So what was the first business that you started? You went to the tech transfer office?
Yeah. So at the time there were, in my classes, I remember having several deaf students in my classroom, and it was impossible for them to see whatever the professor's doing up front in the front of the classroom. And then also they'd have an interpreter sitting right next to them, and nobody can see two places at once. And so they're doing this the whole time. I'm like, that seems really inconvenient. I can hear and see everything, and I still really struggle in my calculus classes. How's this person, gathering all the information they need to be successful? And it turns out one of the professors in the astronomy classroom at BYU, and in that setting, that's even more of a problem because, the professor's pointing at the ceiling with a pointer at the different stars and everything. And so, anyway, it turns out that professor actually did something about it. He got a grant for $700,000 from the government.
Like $700,000?
Yeah, to develop this technology, and it ended up being smart glasses with live stream ASL interpretation.
Wow.
So now wherever the student's looking, they're getting both ASL and of course whatever the professor's doing on the board. So
Sure.
The idea was cool, and I wondered why nobody had done anything with it. And so I got a grant from BYU called the I-Core grant, which was for validation. And so we went to an ed tech conference in San Antonio, set up a booth, and pretended like the whole thing was done.
Yeah.
And we took orders. And
did you actually did people pay you?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so
And you hadn't have nothing was set up yet. It was just like a logo.
Yeah. It was just a
and a booth.
deposit. And of course, the next day we called them and said, hey, we didn't cash your check, and here's your money. And then we went back to BYU and said, hey, we'd like to license this technology, and we figured out a deal with BYU, and I invested some money, and the rest is history on that deal. But that's really what got me into venture capital, because I love that process, and I wanted to be a part of more of that.
Sure.
So, yeah.
What was that first company called?
It's called Signglasses.
Signglasses. That's cool.
Yeah.
And are you still involved with the day-to-day?
Yeah, not on the day-to-day, no.
But you're still a part of the company.
Yeah, I'm definitely wouldn't say I was actively involved, but the business is doing well. I mean, we have customers like NASA and Costco and Microsoft, Twitch, Universal Studios, Comcast, T-Mobile, and it blew up.
That's amazing.
So that changed my life. And since then, I invested in 27 different startups, and then started this fund, and it's a passion thing for me. And
so where did you get the money to invest in all these companies? Was it from your first company that you started, or?
It was mostly through sales, doing sales in the summertime and working really, really hard, and a lot of luck and being in the right place at the right time. But I'm hard on myself, so it's, I feel like I should be, miles ahead of where I'm at, but I'm super grateful. Like, been really lucky. And now, along with the fund, I'm commercializing another technology out of BYU that I'm really passionate about, that helps people with addiction recovery, and some breakthrough technology that I think I already know is going to change a lot of people's lives. So,
man, that's
entrepreneurship's awesome.
Yeah, I just love just how like methodic you are. It's like you figure out what you like, and you're just doubling down on it. It's really cool.
It's interesting you say that. Yeah, I guess I was a really difficult child growing up.
Really?
So I'm told from my mom. Not so much as a teenager. I wasn't like rambunctious or like, doing bad things. I was stubborn. And if I wanted something, I was like going to do whatever it takes to go get it. And nothing was going to stop me.
Seems like that pays off from what you're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I was just channeling that energy into entrepreneurship. But I think life is, a really beautiful thing, and it's something that I just don't want to take for granted, and I want to, make the most of every minute of it.
Something that you mentioned earlier is just that you're very impact driven, that you want to help a lot of people. Would you mind telling me more about that? What is your mission?
Great question. I just, making money's cool. It's cool for like 5 minutes. And then after that, it's just pretty empty. So I think if you're going to go build something, and it's only tied to money, I think you're going to be really disappointed, at the end of it. I like to focus on things that are great value adds to people. And it just so happens that when you create a lot of value for people and great impact, then money usually follows that. And it just is a little bit more fun. And, if I'm going to go put my blood, sweat, and tears into something, especially that doesn't have a guaranteed outcome, like in entrepreneurship, like the odds are against you. The odds are you're going to fail. And so if you're going to go pursue something, you might as well go pursue something that can have a positive impact, because at the end of the day, if you never like got to that, the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, at least you were, the journey mattered, and you're actually like trying to, impact something great. So
I love it. Yeah, I think I've really realized that the most valuable thing that I see that I can get out of entrepreneurship is just the development that you get personally, right? In order to achieve success, you have to become someone successful. Like, you have to change as an individual. You have to really become better. And I feel like that in entrepreneurship is very like a unique situation for that.
Oh, dude, it's brutal. Like, you have to embrace pain, and failure and rejection like no one else. And because of that, I feel like life takes on a deeper significance when you choose to do that, because you don't have to. Like, you and I could go work for somebody else and, a 9 to 5 and have a perfectly good life and turn our phone off at 5 o'clock and stuff and, coast through. We're deliberately choosing to do this.
Yeah.
But because it's so hard, it requires you, it forces you to adapt and change and improve yourself in a way that nothing else will. And I think that is a gift. The pressure is a privilege, right? And I just think about it on a daily basis now with the fund. Is there's so many people that have been doing venture funds for so much longer than me, and I feel like a lucky fool. Meaning, like, did I know what I was doing? Like, how did I have some of those successes early on? And I look at some of the best investments I made. They all pivoted to something completely different than what I actually invested in. And so I'm like, do I know what I'm doing? And so on a daily basis, I'm pushing myself to learn and to consume more information, meet with the smartest people. And if I didn't have this business, I wouldn't there wouldn't be the motivation to do that. And so I just would kind of not want to grow.
Sure.
Yeah.
What has been like probably the biggest failure that's helped you grow the most?
Oh, there's a lot.
Or would you say it's an accumulation of a lot of failures that's helped you grow the most?
I think it was probably an accumulation. I mean, I've had some epic failures, but I just kind of seen them as like stepping stones, because to pivoting to the right thing. Yeah, I think that's the best way to answer that.
how do you overcome those failures? Like, what do you do when you're in that moment and you failed? How do you get past that?
The failures that I've had, um, you always live in this state of, or at least I do, where I'm worrying about, a certain outcome happening, and, trying to focus on the positive thing happening. And then I realize, where I've had that certain outcome happen that I was worried about the whole time. I'm like, crap, this sucks. This is super, super painful. But worrying about it for the last year and a half, 2 years didn't change anything. So if I had just focused my attention on the positive things happening, I think I guess what I'm trying to reflect on is the actual event of the failure was way less painful than the worrying about the failure along the way.
Yeah.
Because that's just kind of
So it's all about like a perspective then.
yeah.
How many businesses did you start before you started your venture capital?
I was involved in starting three of them, and then we only invested in the rest of them.
Okay.
And then, my fourth one that I'm starting it's called Neuro Nova. It's the addiction recovery business. And, that one.
Yeah, tell me about that. What is Neuro Nova?
Well, so what I'm going to probably share with you is probably you're either going to like it or you're going to hate it. The very best innovations are ones that kind of come from the future in a way. So basically, you have the status quo right now, which is, just better iterations of, let's say, a Ford F-150, right?
Okay.
Then all of a sudden, Elon Musk comes from the future and gives us the Cybertruck. And it's polarizing. The reason it's polarizing is it forces a decision. It forces a choice. And this comes from the author of the book, Pattern Breakers, but you don't buy a Cybertruck and wonder how it compares to a Ford F-150. You just don't. You're forcing a choice of do I want to go with Elon Musk to this new future, or do I want to stay on this regular path? And so when I look at Neuro Nova, the current path, or the Ford F-150, if you will, in this analogy, is the current way that we treat addiction recovery and anxiety. And usually it's through pharmaceuticals. And as of right now, if somebody goes to an addiction recovery center, they're going to instantly go through a massive amount of pain when it comes to withdrawals. And so at that point in time, they're usually administered what's called methadone, which is a drug to help them come off of that withdrawal. The professor that developed this technology went through, thousands of iterations, but had a family member go through an addiction recovery center and didn't have a great outcome with their family member. And instead of sitting on their butt and doing nothing about it, he just built something. He discovered that there's a certain beat frequency or vibration when sent up the spine, triggers what are called mechanoreceptors in the spine that can help the brain produce dopamine naturally, which is significant when coming off of withdrawal. And the interesting thing about it is, well, I don't want to say the interesting thing about it, but what we found in our phase 1 clinical trials was people pre and post treatment had significant reduction in anxiety levels. And then after 2 weeks of treatment, their baseline level of anxiety was significantly lower. So we had fantastic success with it. And the reason I said that you may love it or hate it is, the traditional medicine people are not going to love it, right? So that's our unique insight. Now, will the market pick that up? That's, remains to be seen. We're seeing a lot of really good early signs, and there are a lot of tailwinds of people just being sick of, giving our kids pharmaceuticals when they have anxiety. Like, why aren't there more remedies to help people without giving them drugs? And anyway, it's a really exciting future. So, we're taking this idea from the future. The product is weird, it's different, but if we're right, we're going to. A lot of people are going to like it, and then also a lot of people aren't going to like it, and that's a good thing.
When did you get started with Neuro Nova?
We'd been watching this for several years. I remember going up to the Swicket at BYU on the top floor or whatever, and we were seeing them experimenting on rodents and sending this beat frequency up their spines, and then they cut the rodent's head off and look at their brain and see the dopamine in the brain.
Holy cow!
Yeah, I mean,
that's crazy.
Sounds a little bit inhumane, but and so we were watching it, and we just wanted to see if the technology worked, but it does.
Wow. So walk me through, how does this actually work? Like, how, if I were struggling with addiction, how does this apply to me?
So what we're telling people, or at the addiction recovery centers, we're prescribing, if you will, is a patient will sit on the chair for about 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening, and about 7 or so minutes into a treatment, they're going to get kind of, at least I do when I sit on, I get like a cool sensation in my brain, and that's the dopamine being released. But it's a little chair. It looks like a chair the Apple computer would have made, and it has two what are called LFEs in the base, and it's sending this beat frequency up your spine. Wow. So you can feel it going up and down your spine.
So is this like going to be a product for everyone, or is it going to be more for like providers?
Well, what's interesting with this is it's a platform play. So there are several disease states that rely upon dopamine in the brain. Parkinson's is one, insomnia, OCD, PTSD, ADHD, anxiety, and of course addiction. Yeah. We're starting with addiction, and specifically anxiety that's caused by opioid withdrawals. And maybe I got off track. I don't remember what your question was specifically, but that's so that's what we're focusing on. But it can and should, in my opinion, be used by everybody that deals with some sort of anxiety. And that is an enormous problem that people are facing nowadays. And a lot of it's due to social media and other factors, but because there's so much stimulation when it comes to using our phones and all this technology, our opinion is that people's dopamine levels are just messed up. And just getting them back to a level playing field is really good.
Interesting. So you said your first market you're targeting is those struggling with opioid addictions. Yeah. How are you helping those people? Are you like selling these chairs to them directly, or is it to like healthcare providers?
So our first group of people we're working with are our therapists and providers in that realm, and then also addiction recovery centers. And so if you're going into therapy, you would go and sit on the chair, right before a therapy session, and lo and behold, you have. What the data shows is you should have about, for 2.5 hours, more dopamine in your brain for 2.5 hours. And what happens with dopamine, it's not the happy chemical, it's actually the learning chemical. And what it does is it actually puts your brain in the state where you're able to learn and change, like allows your brain to change.
Interesting.
And so if you're a therapist, or if you are addicted to something, and your therapist is trying to help you create new patterns, it is necessary to have dopamine in your brain in order to make that change. If you don't have it in your brain, you're going to have a very, very difficult time changing your behavior. So that's how we're using it now. Is they'll use it before a session, and we actually have our patients wear one of these. Fitbits, which is measuring their heart rate variability, which is correlated to their anxiety levels. And that's demonstrating, the outcomes from the treatments. And if a patient, could really benefit of having a chair at home, then they can also buy a chair to have it at home.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what's the plan? Like, are you planning to scale to these other markets soon, or where do you see your company going?
Oh, we'll eventually get there. Just one. Every vertical is enormous, so we're gonna stick to addiction recovery and anxiety for the start, and then see how things go from there.
I love it.
But yeah.
What success stories do you have? Like,
What?
it
what
sounds like you're working a
oh,
lot with these people. Do you have any like case studies?
well, I don't know if this is me drinking my own Kool-Aid, but like for me, before I invested, because it was so different and markedly different than existing remedies, I was like, this really. So I've dealt with this is a little bit vulnerable, but I've dealt with anxiety and depression for most of my life, and that's due to some of the things happened growing up. And I served a church mission, and I got back, and I just was in a horrible spot. So the first thing my therapist does is, oh well, we got problem solved. We're going to give you citalopram, and we're going to give you Adderall, and that's just going to make everything great.
Interesting.
And so for 10 years, I took those medicines, and all it did is just mask what I should have been dealing with on the inside. And anyway, I had this goal that eventually I didn't want to be on those medications anymore. But every time I tried, I'd have withdrawals.
Withdrawals, yeah.
Yeah. And so I wasn't abusing the medication I was given. I was just taking it as prescribed. But I was still dependent on it. And so I said, you know what? It was affecting my sleep too. So you know what? I'm going to try this. So, right away I saw, after a treatment, I feel my anxiety levels plummet.
Wow.
But after about 2 weeks, I would fall asleep. So it used to take me an hour and a half to fall asleep. It takes me like 24 minutes to fall asleep now.
No way.
That's, in the use case of insomnia, like that completely makes sense.
That's huge. Yeah.
And then I was able to stop the medication cold turkey, and it's been almost 2 years now.
After one use? Or
After 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Well, so I actually stopped cold turkey, and then I started using it, and I didn't feel the pains of withdrawals like I had in the past, because I tried other times, and I couldn't get out of bed for multiple days in a row. So again, that's one data point, but it was enough of a data point for me to know that, like, hey, I want to get behind this. This is important. And then, of course, this was after hundreds of data points from people in the addiction recovery centers in our first clinical trial, and so that just validated all that data for me.
It made it personal.
Yeah, it made it personal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is super cool. I think this is a really interesting product. I would love to learn more about this and see where this goes.
People need it.
Yeah.
And people are desperate for it. So I'm excited, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to execute. And I don't, the only thing that'll mess this thing up is if I get in the way.
Sure.
So yeah, so I'm going to try to not do that.
So where can people go to learn more about Neuro Nova?
We're very brand new, so you can go to our website, neuronovaco.com, and learn a little bit more about it. And then you could hop on our, there's a long line of people that want them, but you can pre-order one, and we will be January 1. We will have our first shipment from our manufacturer. Up until now, we've been like 3D printing them and like building them.
Yeah.
And it's been quite the prototype, but we'll have them mass produced starting January.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So how does the relationship work with your venture capital business?
Yeah, great question. So I think that the very, very best venture capitalists are the ones that actually are operators as well. I think too many times these investors sit up, on their ivory tower, never having started a business, not knowing the pressure and the anxiety and everything that goes along with it, and trying to advise founders. That's weird. I think if you're going to be a great investor and advisor to a founder, you need to be in the trenches too. And I think it keeps my skills sharp. It allows me to relate to founders in a different way. And also makes me competitive because, on the best deals, there's a lot of people that want to invest. I'm able to win those deals with those founders because they want to work with me because I'm in the trenches with them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's different. So it's a competitive advantage for me there. Anyway, so that's why.
Yeah, that's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
How involved are you with these other companies that you've invested in?
We're pretty involved. So back to that previous question, like I can't do all this on my own. So I've got partners in the venture capital fund,
Sure.
and I have my roles and responsibilities, but that allows me to do both jobs. But we try to meet with each founder once a month, go over their KPIs, how they're performing, and help them get the things that they need. Unfortunately, here at iHub, and a lot, we invest in a handful of companies that come from here. There's tons of resources that are available to them here at iHub.
Okay, what does the relationship look like between like All In Ventures and iHub? It sounds like you have a very unique relationship compared to most founders.
Yeah, we're a preferred co-invest partner with the iHub Impact Fund, and so we like to invest alongside the Impact Fund here at iHub.
That's awesome.
We've, of course, donated to the foundation and everything.
So do you, normally founders here, like they come here for the mentors, but it sounds like you're filling both roles as like a startup company, an investor, and a mentor.
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a mentor quite yet. But I'm also here because I want access to the mentors. And in fact, we were able to work with a handful of partners that have had, mentors have had, massive success outside of iHub that are, helping us make the investment decisions that we're making and helping advise us. And that's one thing that I think if I had a unique ability, it would be just bringing smart people together around me to help fill a lot of my gaps. And so, but at the same time, I try to help mentor where I can, but I definitely wouldn't call myself that quite yet. And iHub has been a fantastic resource for me to meet the right people and get mentors that help me both with Neuro Nova and with the fund.
So what does the future kind of look like for you? Like, it sounds like you have so many different things going on all at once. Where do you see yourself going?
We're going to continue to grow the fund and invest in companies. We're investing in 50. We've invested in 10 so far. So we'll keep doing that. And then the team will help raise another fund in 3 years. Once we've invested in all 50 companies, we'll invest in some more. And, I'll be heads down at Neuro Nova growing that company and making sure that succeeds and is successful. And I think our investors are really happy that, I'm an operator in one of the businesses, so I can really, make sure that, we have the best chance of success possible.
I've really appreciated this time, man. There's been so many cool things that you've shared. What is like the last biggest piece of advice you'd give to people that are just starting out businesses or they want to start businesses?
Just do something. A lot of people talk about doing something and never get around to doing it. It is very scary, and you almost do just need to jump off the ledge and just go. I would encourage you to do that. You only have one life. I think about this a lot. When I'm 80 years old, I want to look back on my life and know that I kind of left it all out on the field and that I tried. And if I played it safe and made great money and, had the whole, all those, great vacations, all that stuff, I think I'd regret it. And so that's why I made the choice to go for it is I know that, when that time comes, I know that I left it all in the field and I tried to have as much impact as I could.
I really love that answer because that seems to be the common answer with a lot of the founders here. That everyone just says, just get started.
Yeah.
Well,
cool.
Thanks, Tom, for coming on the show. Where can people go to learn more about you personally?
I have an Instagram. I'm not on it very much. Thomas J. Wilkinson, or go to our website, allinventures.com or neuronovaco.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.